Hello and welcome to the Drexel Interview. I'm your host, Paula Marantz Cohen, speaking to you from my office as Dean of the Pennoni Honors College at Drexel University in Philadelphia. Today my guest is the author Tom Perrotta. Mr. Perrotta is the author of many critically acclaimed and best-selling novels, among them Election, Little Children, The Leftovers, and most recently, Mrs. Fletcher. He's also a screenwriter and co-wrote the screenplay for Little Children and for the HBO series The Leftovers. Tom Perrotta, welcome to the Drexel Interview.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
Well, you are such a writer for our times, it seems to me, and you're really capturing so much of middle-class life in the 21st century. And I wonder about your upbringing, how it shaped what you bring to literature.
Yeah, so I grew up in Garwood, New Jersey, which is in Union County, so not too far from Manhattan. But it was a blue-collar town in the 70s, and very few of my friends' parents went to college. But my mother was very ambitious for her kids, and all three of us ended up going, leaving home and going away to college. And I went to Yale, which was very disorienting and mind-expanding experience, but one that created all kinds of identity issues for me.
Abrasions and so forth.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a completely different world. People talked differently, people looked different, people had access to resources that I didn't even know existed. I was determined at the time to sort of stay the way that I was, but of course it turns out that's impossible.
Now your novel, I guess it was a 2006 novel, Joe College, deals with a character who goes to an elite college from a blue-collar background. How autobiographical was that?
It was an attempt for me to work through the drama of those years where I was changed sort of against my will through my contact with the academic world and the Ivy League. But I'm a fiction writer, and so I don't like to be bound to the details of my own life. I did, borrow huge amounts from my own experience at college.
Was it a cathartic experience writing that book? I mean, getting it out there, whether it was fictionalized to some extent, or maybe even good that you fictionalized it, because that becomes a way of kind of treating yourself in some ways.
I think it was, because if I look back on my career, I would say that the first 4 books are very New Jersey-centric. Election I'll leave out of this, but Bad Haircut, The Wishbones, Joe College was really drawing on autobiographical material and my experiences in New Jersey. And once I got Joe College out of my system, I think my writing changed quite a bit, and it caught up with my life as I was living it. So the next book was Little Children, which really does take place in the world that I was then living in. So those early books were backward-looking, and then after Joe College, I sort of started to deal with what was right in front of me, raising small kids, the culture war in America. I do think of Joe College as sort of the end of that era where I was kind of investigating my past.
It's interesting that you also wrote Election, which is about high school comic send-up and also critique of the high school culture. Was that also a catharsis for you, writing that? Or was that's more, it's broader in many respects, wouldn't you say? And I guess you were having maybe more fun with it?
Yes, and I think Election kind of looked forward to some of these later books. And for instance, it had a lot of strong female characters, which my earlier books hadn't. And it was the most sort of explicitly comic and satirical. But Election is a kind of unique book in my
It is, and the movie version is also kind of cult-like in a way, I think, in the way it's been responded to.
No, it's amazing. I think at the time that it came out, it was a critical favorite, but not a popular hit. And I think if you told me that 20 years from now, people would still be talking about it and would use the character Tracy Flick, for instance, to talk about Hillary Clinton or to talk about Sarah Palin or any number of women politicians, actually, I would have been very surprised, because it didn't seem like it was going to be culturally central in that way.